offense of rape carries with it a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years when a person is found guilty. This sentence may be further enhanced by a court of law to life imprisonment depending on the case in question. This is according to the Sexual Offences Act. The Sexual Offences Act, which came into force in 2006, took over from the earlier provisions that were contained in the Penal Code. It introduced 14 new sexual offences that are punishable by law, such as gang rape, deliberate infection with HIV, trafficking for sexual exploitation, child pornography, among others. This is what the court shall be determining in the rape case of the Republic versus Richard Simba, which is a dramatized court trial that is based on a real case with similar facts that has gone through the Kenyan legal system and a final judgment given. We, on the other hand, will be handing the scales of justice to 9 Kenyans who will be part of a special jury. Ultimately, the final outcome of the real case will be revealed and compared to the jury's verdict, explaining the reasoning behind the court's decision.
Mr. Mudachi.
Yes, my lady.
Is this document also a part of the charge sheet you have presented?
Yes, my lady.
Did you replace your glasses?
Yes, my lady.
Because it seems they are not helping you. I will read this for you. A 40-year-old dark complexion, handsome lawyer with a lot of love to give seeks a 30-year-old roundly shaped woman with...
Objection! My apologies, my lady.
Keep your private matters, including personal ads, out of this courtroom.
Yes, my lady. I apologize for the mix-up.
Use your glasses.
Yes, my lady.
Mr. Mudachi, it would appear that the charges listed on this charge sheets were made under the odd provision of the Penal Code. Shouldn't charges of these alleged offenses be made on the Sexual Offences Act?
That is correct, my lady. My lady, the charges were filed under the Penal Code because the alleged offense was committed just before the Sexual Offences Act came into force.
Well, my lady, in view of the prevailing...
Sit down, Mr. Limo. I know what you are going to ask. I am telling you here now that I am not intending to dismiss these charges.
But, my lady, the charges alleged is rape, and according to the current Sexual Offences Act, a person commits the offense termed as rape if he or she intentionally or unlawfully commits an act which causes penetration with his or her genital organs. B, the other person does not consent to the penetration. Or C, the consent is obtained by force or by means of threats or intimidation of any kind. Where, my lady, penetration means
Mr. Limo,
the partial or complete insertion of the genital organs.
Cancel. One more word out of you and I'll hold you in contempt of court. Speak only when I ask you to. Is that clear?
Crystal, my lady.
My lady, perhaps...
That applies to you too, Mr. Mudachi. Speak only when I ask you to.
Yes, my lady.
I intend to press on with this hearing. Mr. Richard Simba, you have been charged with rape contrary to section 140 of the Penal Code. How do you plead to these charges?
Not guilty.
In view of the fact that the accused has already waited for so long for this day in court, we will have a full hearing this afternoon.
Yes.
Next case.
Your client is a rapist, Limo, a low-life scum, and he belongs in jail.
But actually, you know as well as I do that there was no evidence of penetration as is required by the Sexual Offences
Limo,
Act.
all I have to do is prove that your client had unlawful canon knowledge of the victim without her consent. And I do have the evidence to get a conviction.
Well, if you say so, Mr. Dark, handsome lawyer with lots of love to give.
What is your relationship with Richard Simba?
Richard was my boyfriend.
So this developed into an intimate relationship?
Yes, we were intimate.
Lucy, I know this is difficult for you, but could you please tell the court what happened on the night of 17th March?
Yes, I can. We had an argument and we hadn't spoken to each other for a while. We were trying to mend things, to rekindle the relationship. So we met up for drinks at Richard's favorite place, the Estate Bar.
Who suggested that you meet up for drinks?
It was Richard who suggested we meet at the Estate Bar. We talked about us. I really felt like we had reconnected in a way. We had a few drinks, one thing led to another, and so we booked a room at the lodging next door.
Stop, Richard. I feel dizzy. Let's talk.
Don't really mean that, do you? This is a game, right?
No.
Wait
No, Richard, Stop, Richard, I mean it. No, Richard, no. No!
I screamed throughout the hall. I screamed throughout. I never thought that Richard would be capable of such a thing. I never asked for this.
What happened after you raped?
Some people forced their way into the room and they rescued me. I think they heard my screams. When they came in, Richard stopped. I pushed Richard away from me and I tried to get out of the room, but I couldn't because I was feeling so weak. One of the men helped me.
One of the men who forced their way into the room?
Yes, the man in charge of the boarding and lodging. I think his name was Makona.
Then what happened?
My clothes were torn. So Makona took me to find something to cover myself. Then he took me to the hospital. I had to undergo a humiliating examination. I was later taken to file a complaint at the police station with the police.
What happened at the police station?
The police asked me whether I could identify my rapists from an identification parade. I was scared, but I managed to make the identification.
And is the man you identified in this courtroom today?
Yes, he is. He is that man there. Richard Simba is the man who raped me.
Thank you, Lucy. No further questions, my lady.
Miss Mango, I realize that this is very difficult for you. So I will make my questions as painless and as quick as possible, okay?
Thank you.
For how long were you and the accused boyfriend and girlfriend?
I was his girlfriend for about 6 or 7 months. But ever since he raped me...
Rape has not been proved yet. That's why we're here. So during these 6 or 7 months, were the two of you intimate? Did you have sexual relations?
I have already said that we were intimate.
So we can conclude that the two of you knew each other intimately, knew each other's preferences sexually.
Preferences?
Yes, preferences. You know, likes, dislikes, that kind of thing. Isn't it true that you like rough sex?
Objection, my lady. Counsel is trying to put the rape victim on trial here. What could be the relevance of that question?
My lady, the relevance will reveal itself if only you give me a bit of leeway.
However, Mr. Limo, tread very carefully. It is the accused who is on trial, not the witness. Continue with your cross-examination.
Much obliged, my lady. Miss Mango, could you please answer the question?
No, I will not answer that question. What?
I put it to you that when you and the accused had sexual relations, you always say to him that you liked to, and I quote, have it rough.
No, that's a lie.
Have you?
Your rapist client is lying.
Have you ever falsely accused anyone of rape?
What? No, I have not.
You've never had a disagreement with anyone, say a boyfriend perhaps, and as a result, wrongly accused them of rape.
I have never accused anyone falsely of rape. What is this? Am I on trial here? What are you getting at? Are you trying to say I asked for this? What are you saying? I do not need to explain myself to you. I did not bring this upon myself. I am the victim. And that man raped me.
No further questions, my lady.
I think we needed that break after the last testimony. Now let's continue. Mr. Mudachi, please call your next witness.
My name is Samson Makona. I'm the manager of Estate Boarding and Lodging.
My name is James Tumbe. I'm the Estate Youth Protection Group leader.
My name is Moses Chongoro. I'm the leader of the Estate Youth Week Group.
My watchman came to me and told me that he heard screams coming from the room that the accused and Miss Mango occupied. He said it sounded serious and that we needed to call the police.
And did you call the police?
No, the police usually take so long to come, so I decided to check on it myself.
Makona met us outside the estate bar and told us that he was going to check on some sort of problem involving some of his customers.
So we offered to go along with him in case he needed help.
When we got to the room, we found the door locked. We heard screams coming from inside.
And since the one on the inside did not want to open the door,
We decided to break down the door and force our way in.
Inside the room, we found Miss Mango sitting on the bed. Her clothes were torn. She was shivering and crying.
She was almost naked and the accused was standing over her. He looked quite dangerous.
his shirt was off and his trousers were around his ankles.
So he hurriedly pulled up his trousers and we could see what had happened. So we decided to make a citizen's arrest and we took him to the police station.
Then I took her to hospital to get her treated.
I examined the victim and took swabs from her, but I did not find any spermatozoa on her body. What I did find were pus cells which were near her private parts, which we confirm indicate the existence of a sexually transmitted disease.
In your expert opinion, when were the pus cells formed?
I would say that they were formed within the period of the alleged offense involving the accused. They are the result of a recent sexual encounter with a person who had the disease.
Thank you, Dr. Mapindu. No further questions, my lady.
Tell me, doctor, was any of the accused spermatozoa found on the complainant?
What we found were pus cells.
Pus cells? But don't pus cells take a while to form? Surely, doctor, if the complainant came to you immediately after the alleged rape, don't you think that was a bit early for the pus cells to have formed?
As I said earlier, it is my opinion that the pus cells were formed within the period of the alleged offense involving the accused. They were the result of a recent sexual encounter.
Given the amount of time that pus cells take to form, don't you think that the complainant may have had an STD from an earlier sexual encounter with someone else who was not the accused?
I suppose it's possible, but...
So, no spermatozoa was found on the complainant's body, and the pus cells could have come from an earlier sexual encounter. That is very clear. Tell me, doctor, were any tests carried out on the accused?
No, we did not carry any tests on the accused.
Really? But in your examination of the complainant's body, did you find any tissue scars, any tearings on her body, anything that is consistent with an incident of rape?
No, we did not. But it's worth noting that such scars may sometimes take time to appear.
But such tissue scars, if they appear later, could have come from a subsequent event, not directly attributable to the incident in question. Isn't that true, doctor?
Yes.
So no tests were carried out on the accused and no tissue scars were found on the complainant's body. So in fact, there is no physical, medical evidence to show that the STD that the complainant is suffering from was attributable to the accused. Would I be correct in saying that, doctor?
I suppose that is correct.
Mr. Tumbe, isn't it fact that you and Mr. Chongoro are in fact lawless vigilantes who take the law into their own hands?
No. We always obey the law.
We merely provide assistance to wananchi whenever necessary.
Really? And does this assistance include mercilessly beating up the accused when you burst into his room on the material night?
No, we did not do that. Although he probably deserved to be beaten.
But we never touched him.
Really? I have with me police reports from the police station in your area, which I'm now presenting to this court. In all these reports, you and Mr. Chongoro are identified as key suspects in at least 4 incidents of mob justice in your area in the last 6 weeks. I put it to you, Mr. Tumbe, that you are a bloodthirsty gangster for hire who will find for the slightest excuse to beat up innocent one.
That's a lie. All those people deserve to be beaten. In fact,
Thank you, Mr. Tumbe. I have no more use for this witness.
In the present trial, the complainant, Lucy Mango, has given her own account of how she was allegedly raped by the accused Richard Simba. The prosecution has also presented other witnesses, including medical evidence, to prove its case. The court will now hear Mr. Simba's defense.
Mr. Sembele, you have testified that the complainant, Miss Mango, was provocatively dressed in a skimpy miniskirt, that she acted loose with all the customers throughout the night, and that she appeared to be very willing to engage in sexual relations with the accused. Is that correct?
Yes.
The implication of your testimony is that from the way a woman behaves or dresses, she can actually invite rape upon herself. That she, in effect, was asking for it. Do you believe this to be true?
I must object, my lady, but the witness is here to answer questions about the events of the night in question, not be put on trial for his personal views and opinions.
No, Mr. Limo. I am interested in hearing the witness's answer. I shall allow the question. Continue, Mr. Mudachi.
Well, Mr. Sebele, do you believe this to be true? Well, if it was your daughter or your sister or your niece in the complainant's position, how would you feel if it was said that they had invited rape upon themselves?
I imagined I would feel just as bad if my son was accused of rape by someone who was asking
for it? What do you mean by that?
Well, asking for sex. You know, when a woman dresses the way the complainant dressed, she's obviously asking for sex. And she can't just turn around later on and accuse the man she had sex with of rape.
Well, if that's how you truly feel, then I'm very sorry for you, Mr. Sembele.
My lady, I'd like the records to reflect that my next 2 witnesses are hostile. Mr. Mango, when was the last time you saw your daughter?
It was about 2 years ago.
2 years? Why haven't you seen your daughter in 2 years?
There was some tension in our relationship. Or it could be said we were estranged.
So why was your daughter not on speaking terms with you and your husband?
Lucy had had some problems with her father and with me.
What sort of problems? My lady, the witness is refusing to answer the question.
Mrs. Mango, this may be difficult, but you must answer the question.
When Lucy was 17, she began to hang out with some people. These people belonged to an evangelical group, Fast Truth Forever Gospel. This group believes that every 2 years, their members must pay for a pilgrimage to some city in the USA.
And did Lucy want to go on this pilgrimage to the USA?
Yes. Yes, she did. Very much. And she wanted us to give her the money for that pilgrimage.
I wasn't going to let my daughter go on a pilgrimage with that lunatic group. I refused. I told her to concentrate on her studies.
Lucy was very angry. She felt that her father and I, that we had betrayed her.
What happened next? What did Lucy do?
Lucy accused her father of raping her.
She accused her own father of raping her.
But it wasn't true. Paul would never do anything to hurt our daughter. Paul was arrested. The police conducted their investigation and found the accusations to be completely false. But you have to understand, It wasn't Lucy's fault. She had been brainwashed.
That damn religious group took away our daughter. She wouldn't talk to me, neither would she talk to the mother. Lucy left home to live with other sect members somewhere in Nairobi, South Sea.
I did not rape Lucy.
Did you have sexual intercourse with the complainant on the material night?
Lucy had consented to have sex. She told me that she wanted it, but we did not have sex. On that night, we were in the room. I took my clothes off, but we did not go as far as the actual act.
But you have had sex with the complainant on previous occasions?
Lucy has been my girlfriend for a few months, so yes, we have had sex before.
Could you please explain how the sex was on those previous occasions?
Lucy liked it rough. She liked to play rough.
I see. So, Lucy likes rough sex?
Yes. Yes, she did. She told me that she liked her man treating her roughly, of which I could never really understand, especially since she was someone so deeply involved in her church.
You mean the First Truth Forever Gospel Church?
Yes. Actually, the disagreement that led us breaking up in the first place was about that church.
What disagreement was this?
I had gone with her for a few services at the church's compound in Karen, but eventually I decided not to join. Lucy was very angry about this, especially since she had expected I would pay for her trip and the other church members on a pilgrimage.
So you and Lucy broke up because you would not be a member of her church. Okay, then what happened?
On the day before the incident, Lucy called me. She asked me, she begged me to give her money for her pilgrimage, but I told her that I didn't have any. She wasn't very happy about that. So I told her that as consolation, I would take her out the following day for a couple of drinks. You know, just for old time's sake.
And why would you do this?
I still had feelings for her even after we had broken up. I guess I just wanted to see her one last time.
Okay, so she agreed to meet you for one last drink. And then what happened?
The following night, went for drinks at the estate bar, where we both got tipsy. Lucy suggested to me that we should book a room at the boarding and lodging next door so that our party could continue in private. We got a room. We were kissing and starting to undress. I played it a little rough, just the way I knew Lucy liked it. Then Lucy suddenly pulled away from me and asked me again for money for her pilgrimage. But I told her that I didn't have any, at which point she threatened me.
Threatened you? How did she threaten you?
She said that I'd be very sorry if I refused to give her what she wanted. She started screaming and tearing down her clothes. I tried to calm her down, but it was too late. A few minutes of her screaming, the door was broken down and 3 men burst in. Without asking any questions, 2 of them proceeded to beat me mercilessly. Afterwards, they took me to the police station. I was half dressed. I was humiliated. Then I was beaten again severely and thrown into an ID parade with hardened criminals and thugs.
Mr. Simba, you have stated that you were beaten both by the men who forced their way into your room at the lodging and the police. Why is there no police record of your complaint or medical records of the wounds you suffered from these alleged beatings?
Those policemen seem to have already decided I was a rapist, and they beat me.
Where are the wounds, Mr. Simba? Where are the medical reports? Did you even seek medical attention? Or was this all a conspiracy between the good Samaritans who saved the victim you raped and the police?
My lady, I must object, but is counsel testifying or will he let the witness answer his numerous questions?
Sit down and be quiet, Mr. Limo.
What I have told the court today is the truth.
Do you like apples, Mr. Simba?
Yes.
In this context, I will refer to it as the forbidden fruit. How many bites have you taken of the forbidden fruit?
Come on, objection.
The truth is that this isn't your first sexual offense.
My lady, counsel cannot seek to produce previous...
Weren't you, in fact, accused of indecent sexual assault 4
My
years
lady,
ago?
you must not allow this to continue.
You forced yourself on a teenage girl in a matatu. And then 2 years later, you sexually assaulted another girl.
This is unfairly prejudicial.
A girl who was in your class in Bungoma College, forcing you to transfer to a different
Would that say you cannot do this?
That is exactly what you did to the victim.
Cancel. I shall hold both of you in contempt of court if you persist shouting in my court. Now, to the introduction of...
Excuse me, my lady. I would like to address the issue the State Council has raised, if I may.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Simba.
Yes. The incident you brought up happened 4 years ago when I was 17. I was in a matatu with my then girlfriend. She was 16. We were from the cinema in town. As soon as we reached her matatu stop outside the Kilelesho police station, I tried to kiss her goodbye on the lips because I thought she had given me the go-ahead signal. I guess I was wrong because as soon as I kissed her on the lips, she screamed. The tout dragged me out and started beating me. The nearby police heard the commotion and came and arrested me. Then the girl later on came and explained that it was all but a misunderstanding. It was just a case of mixed signals. Same thing with the girl in the Bungoma College.
So, in 2 earlier instances, you were a victim of mixed signals. And now you're saying that this is a false rape accusation by Miss Mango. You know, the women in your life are always getting sexually assaulted, but it's never your fault, is it, Mr. Simba? You are always the victim, right? No further questions for this witness, my lady. The accused has a history of sexually assaulting women. We have heard the testimony of 4 credible witnesses, including a doctor who conducted medical tests on the victim, confirming that the accused had unlawful carnal knowledge of the victim within the meaning of the penal code. This is a brutal man, a rapist. All the side issues and irrelevant matters that the accused lawyer has tried to introduce have no bearing on this case. After all, with all the sexual assaults that were committed against women during the post-election violence and the current upsurge of sexual violence all over the country, we cannot afford to be distracted by side issues and irrelevant matters that defense lawyers introduce. We can no longer seek to put rape victims on trial and let rapists walk around freely. We must begin to listen to women. We must begin to listen to and believe victims. Richard Simba raped Lucy Mango. He must be put in prison.
There is no conclusive medical evidence to show that the accused had sex with the complainant on the night in question, let alone rape her. There is also no actual evidence to show that the complainant was even raped at all. As for the witnesses, the prosecution has not produced any credible witnesses. As for the complainant is a misguided religious fanatic who makes false accusations of rape when she does not get what she wants. She falsely accused Mr. Simba of rape. She's just a confused girl. Surely, is this someone you can trust?
As we await judgment in the criminal case of the Republic versus Richard Simba, you, the jury, will now have to look at everything that you have seen in the trial and use this information to deliberate, after which you must come back with a verdict which will address whether you think Mr. Simba is guilty or not guilty of rape. Okay, I'll start with you, Mr. Nguru.
Her behavior in the club, where we saw her dancing at very close proximity with the Simba, and also her drunken stupor, leads me to asking myself certain questions as to her character. What we saw in the episode, her going to the room with a young man after that drinking session leads me to also ask certain questions about her thoughtfulness. Obviously, she was not going to the room for another dancing session. And she was going to the room with her boyfriend, past boyfriend, who had had intimate relationship with her. So they must have gone there to revise the notes.
At the end of the day, you can choose who to sleep with, you can choose how far to go, whether it's decent, somebody can sleep with one person, someone can sleep with 20, its morality is relative, but the minute you don't want it, you have that option to refuse, to say no. Even prostitutes, for example, if someone is just walking the street, because if that's her profession, then somebody accosts her and rapes her, don't say she deserves it because that is her profession.
We know human beings can be sued by the devil. So if somebody is dressed in a decent manner, and someone else is dressed in a provocative manner and they pass along the same road, if I have an intention of raping, I will not think of raping that other one who is in a big bui per se, or is dressed like a nun. I will think of raping that one who's already showed me the nudeness of her body. So I think...
I'm so tired of that line of how I dress in a manner likely to suggest that I want to be raped. I think all that is hogwash. It is my right. It is my body. I dress how I want. And first and foremost, yes, it's nonverbal communication. Yes, I might be dressed a bit too short, but what's short? Nonverbal communication does not always have to be accurate. I dress the way I want to dress to communicate what I want to communicate. If you think I want to be raped, that is your thought. It is not my thought that I'm dressing this way or dancing this way so that I can be raped.
When she calls the guy over like this.
And that
That
is my
is the part
boyfriend.
it shows.
No, but I want to dance with him.
Wanting sexual relations
yes.
and wanting rape are two
Different.
entirely
Very
different
different
things.
things.
Nobody wants rape.
And I feel extremely embarrassed that I'm sitting with men who have that kind of thinking, okay? And I'm sorry to say that. The fact that I'm in the club dancing and dressed in a short skirt and something, I'm having a good time, that doesn't mean I'm telling you, Dan, hey, come, let's go get some. No way.
The fact that she took herself there and she went on her own volition. She wasn't forced. And they were going to a room.
Going to a room does not constitute going to have sex. It doesn't translate into
where
that.
there were facilities for intimacy.
Hold up, please, no.
Gidoku. Yeah, I think first and foremost, rape. From whatever angle you look at it, from top of a tree, from the bottom of a tree, rape is wrong. It should not happen. And where it comes to the issue of how a woman is dressed, that it's a cost to lure a man into raping her, I think is out of this world. That is not an excuse. Rape has got no excuse whatsoever. We have stuff, I think, like in the law, which is called indecent exposure. So what you do is do a citizen arrest like they did, take her either to the police station or tell her you go to dress up.
Coming back to our present case, was Lucy raped? Sarah?
We have been told in the court proceedings there were previous assumptions that led us to asking, was she really raped? Because she was denied money to go to the pilgrimage, and from that, she accused the father of raping her. So from that conception, I wonder, was she really raped? We got to the way they were dancing. After dancing, they got intimate, they were kissing. And she proceeded to go to the room. Definitely, this is a boyfriend. Ex or a boyfriend, they proceeded to go to the room. If she wasn't calling out for that, what else was she calling for?
I think that's an insult, Sarah, especially coming from you. I honestly, I can't believe it. How many times? Let me ask something. Let me ask something. No, you let me ask a question. How many times do you go into a room with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and you actually have sex? Is it every time? You can go to a level of even stripping naked. Forget it, my friend.
Why? You must think on both streets.
You can still say no.
I can't believe it.
But you said about trust, right?
Is it also not interesting that every woman that Simba comes across either to kiss screams?
Okay.
Why do they scream? Why is...
All right. Simba was a 17-year-old young man.
All right. The question before the court is whether this man actually raped this woman. Now, rape is a very serious offense. And it has implications. First, being accused of rape can have dire consequences on a person's reputation if it is found that it did not happen. And of course, there is the victim, the traumatized victim who is scarred for life. So if you're ready to convict this person, let's talk about the evidence. What evidence do you have to show that this woman was raped by this man? Sharon.
I have to say it's really difficult to decide because there's doubt cast on both parties in this case. There seems to be, you know, allegations around both Simba, and we've seen that Lucy herself actually falsely accused, so to speak.
And earlier, the lawyer or the judge, sorry, the judge or the lawyer, one of the two, in the proceedings stated that rape can be counted for when it's unlawfully indecent exposure, threatens or intimidation. Now, if she felt threatened or intimidated by this guy, it does become rape then. Yeah, so even if there's no proper intercourse. Yeah, so I think that it could be possibly still stated as rape.
Richard Simba has a case in life whereby he was again arrested by the police of rape.
Twice, he's been accused
so
twice. Is that a coincidence?
This raises questions on Simba. Still, I have no reason to believe Richard and no reason to believe Lucy even more.
I really have issues with the way Lucy is being represented just because she was dressed in a short skirt and she was dancing provocatively. And I just really have to wonder, what happens to those kids who are raped by men? They're never indecently dressed. They're never dancing provocatively. I think for me, the hit is what happens to those women who find themselves in that situation where a man is actually, able to rape her. Whether it's a woman of 40 or 50 or 80 or a child of 6, 7 years. Okay? So it defeats the logic and the sense. Yeah, it would be a different case, but I'm really trying to make sense of this when you guys are insisting on Lucy's indecent, dressing and dancing provocatively. Yes, it could have been, it's alluring in the way you perceive it, okay? But it's a fact, Lucy was not trying to allure the men. She was just dancing and having a good time. What do you make of a good time? Surely, I'm dressed in my dress today. What would you tell me, that I'm chasing some men?
That's
no way.
One question of indecent dressing. What about her? What about her focusing on the father, accusing the father of rape?
Character is another thing. Her character is another thing, and what she was doing that day is something totally different. Exactly. For me, it doesn't sing out like she was saying, come, let's go have some sex. No way. You would never convince me, because she may have had some intention of going to have a good time with a boyfriend in the room, but some sense might have come back to her like, hey, what are you doing? And at that point, that's when she decided it's not happening. Because you can't tell me if I don't want to. I can go into a room with my boyfriend, okay? And we do all that kind of romancing beat. And when it's get there and I feel like I don't want it, I'll say no. Is he going to rape me? I will say no, and I'll mean it. I will say no. So to say that Lucy dressed provocatively and she was asking for some sex, I'm really frustrated.
All right, unfortunately, I think
I can't believe that's like telling me, My God.
I think we've covered most of the ground, and I think we all have varied views about the subject, but we now we have to make a decision. And I'll take your individual verdict, starting with you, Jumali.
My verdict is not guilty.
I don't believe Lucy was raped.
My verdict is not guilty.
Simba is not guilty of rape.
Due to the lack of evidence, I find the case not guilty.
I too find Simba not guilty on the fact that the evidence collected was not sufficient.
I think she was raped, right? But she is of very doubtful character. She should be checked. Her head should be checked. I find the evidence lacking, and so he's not guilty.
I don't have enough reason to convict the accused guilty.
On the grounds of the law, I would find Simba not guilty of rape.
All right, from your votes, it's clear. The verdict is unanimous. You find the accused in the case of the Republic versus Richard Simba not guilty of rape. But what did the court decide? Let's find out.
Firstly, this court recognizes that it is the right of every woman and also every man to say no at any time during a sexual encounter, therefore putting an end to that encounter. The court is also mindful of the need for defense lawyers to test the credibility of the witnesses giving testimony, especially in the rape cases of this nature, where it is often a case of he said, she said. Nevertheless, I disapprove the conduct of the defense counsel in this case. In essence, what the defense counsel tried to do was put complainant on trial, which in rape cases tend to mean that the complainant has to relieve the trauma of the assault alleged to have happened. At the same time, the prosecution has to exercise caution in the way it prosecutes such cases and should ensure that sufficient medical evidence is adduced and credible corroborating witnesses are provided to prove claims of rape. Indeed, the police should have carried out a medical exam on the accused to find out if he was in fact suffering from the same sexually transmitted disease as the complainant. The evidence brought before this court clearly shows that the complainant knew the accused very well. Defense counsel has made allegations that the complainant wanted to blackmail the accused. Defense counsel also introduced numerous matters concerning the complainant's past personal life. This may or may not be true. In the end, none of the defense counsel's allegations really matter because in a criminal prosecution, a conviction must be based on the strength of the prosecution's evidence. In this case, the prosecution's evidence left such yawning gaps that I have no option than to pronounce that the prosecution has not proved its case and that the accused is acquitted. Mr. Simba, you are free to go.
And that acquittal brings to an end, at least legally, the matter of the Republic versus Richard Simba. But for you watching at home, we'd like to know your verdict. Send us a text to 8040 with your verdict and your comments, and we can also continue this discussion online on our Facebook page. And with that, thank you for watching, and see you next time on Be the Judge.
I'm not really happy that the guy was set free.
Being a wake-up call, especially for the prosecution. You know, these are serious matters at hand, so seriousness needs to be applied at all levels, working with all the parties involved.
For me, it's not really a verdict to write home about because I still sadden at the way women are represented in such cases, and the fact that, you know, we are charged with the duty of making sure we don't make men uncomfortable at whatever time. I don't know whether they are small gods.
And I agreed with the ladies. They can dress the way they want. I don't think I can agree that they can go half naked in the streets of Nairobi because common sense should tell them the consequences of such.